Carignan.
Carignan, I think.
Yeah, get that right. 2 for 32 and a touchdown. And then Jazan Bile, a touchdown as well on his one reception. And Zion Dogbe Brown, 2 for 35 and a touchdown. So Canada spreading the ball around with their backs and receivers. And, of course, Brazil continuing to try to build their program and establish themselves as a team in this tournament. So lots going on, mostly on the Canadian side for this game. And, Dave, I think you got an update on the other game. You talked about the score. We got the final score from the...
I don't remember what it was. 51-6, I think.
51-6, Japan over top. So we kind of know those matchups going into...
And a nice kickoff return here, and it might go the distance. And he will. The 10, the 5, house call for Mika Lapostol. Touchdown for Team Canada to start out the second half.
Lapostol with, again, 4 touches on the ground, making the most of the opportunity had there on the return game. Is there a flag? Is there a flag on the field in the middle? I think
there might have been. Rob Herod, Jerome Messam has the longest kickoff return touchdown in history, dating back to 2005.
Team number 52, 10 yards from the spot of the foul, first down, Canada.
So that return negated. Jerome Messam's 19-year record of a 95-yard kickoff return touchdown might have been somewhere in the neighborhood of that in Jacksonville, Florida, and Messam, an incredible CFL career. So...
yeah, and looking through the record books of this tournament, his name's popping up in a number of
times, yeah.
Rushing yards, in a game, in a tournament.
Does it surprise you the way he burst onto the scene? Yeah. He was unstoppable in the early stages of his CFL career. And a fumble on the play, picked up, turnover potentially. Brazil looks to have jumped on it. Davi Bruzamolin, the one who made contact at the goal line, and now he's got a fumble recovery. So crazy how the game of football works.
Wow. And crazy stat that I didn't touch on, which I actually stood out, was there was 0 fumbles in the first half of this game. First offensive play in the second half, ball gets put on the ground, and again, those little things are things Team Canada is definitely going to want to clean up, and we'll get a shot there. Some
of the Brazilian fans in attendance,
yeah, they're out to support, and they need to be loud to keep these guys motivated.
Yeah, maybe they'll hopefully, if you're a Brazilian fan, give them something to cheer about here, as it's Felipe Cota back under center again, and he hands it off. Positive yards on first down, and they burst ahead through Rob Herod, maybe even matching their rush total from the opening half, Luis Miguel Nunez.
Well, total offense was 14 and total running was -6, so they're blowing that out of the water.
Yeah, right out of the water completely.
You know, defense comes out, gets the turnover, jumps on the loose ball, and the offense is in the Canada territory.
So Mika Lapostol thought he had a kick return for a touchdown, taken away by penalty. Good positive drive in the best position Brazil has seen yet to start out the second half. It's Felipe Cota under center again. 1st and 10 from the 35. And oopsie, he's got nowhere to go. Met by a wall of Canadian defenders. On the tackle there, number 54, Jeffrey Keb Olambi.
And Christoph Martin, defensive lineman, pitching in. So again, linebackers coming in, D linemen playing hard. That front, you know, they didn't feel good about the run they just gave up on that last play. So they're coming,
huge yardage.
Coming hard. Brazil gonna find another way to move the ball here.
2nd and 11 from the 31-yard line. And again, the best field position yet for Brazil, a country, their first time at the U20 level this tournament now, previously U19 and 2018, now U20. And COVID-19 pandemic stopped it in 2020, having the first event since then. And great stuff, but that's not a great exchange. A little bit bobbled. Maybe lost it in the sun, did Luis Miguel Nunez, and didn't hear his name called much, Rob, in the opening half. Brazil going to him pretty regularly here to start things out here.
You can see here just trying to create some space. Had to throw it a little bit higher because the hands of the defensive linemen were there and just outstretched arms of the running back. Again, running backs, maybe not the best hands on the team, but
certainly better than defensive lineman.
Yeah, definitely. Well, most of the time, yeah, but he's got to work to reel that in. Tough one to catch as it's forced to go high with the defensive line pressure there. So
3rd and 11 for Brazil. Cota giving some last-second instructions to his running back. He's got protection and good contact on the ball, incomplete. And on there to break it up was Owen Locke.
Yeah, tight coverage by Owen Locke there. Being there, timing was perfect, and that's what you want to see. Be on his hip. You can see here the release right there. One hand on the ball, the other one on the receiver. If he does catch, he's secured the tackle, but great job of disrupting that one there.
Number 47, Rob, stats on him this year, unbelievable. Owen Locke has a 4.69 40 at 70 tackles, 16 solo tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, and a pick 6 during his career with the Huron Heights Warriors. Also, he was a running back, just converted a linebacker. Also played on both sides of the ball, 13 touchdowns and as a running back during his career. He was an All-American with the Gridiron program in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay. So another athlete on each side of the ball for Team Canada.
Well, they lined up for a 48-yard field goal.
Which would be a record.
Unfortunately, they took a penalty, and so they've had to switch out with their punt team. I was looking forward to that 48-yarder and seeing if...
soccer background as well, right? Let's see if
that's right.
Field goals get me excited.
Here they go to their punt team, and I think important learning for the Brazilian special teams team is, angling this punt to the sideline is going to be important. They've got some great returners, great athletes. They get the snap drawn down again. It was a high snap, so that is a high bomb in the air that's going to bounce. Takes Brasilia, bounce. There you go. That's what you want right there. Good. He's trying to wave the air to get that a little bit further, get a little extra bounce there. But again, had to bring down the high snap, which made it not the ideal situation. Wanted to get off quickly before it was blocked, but good job, gets the bounce, and Canada's starting inside their 10.
Want to get another look at that kick because when you generally see punters, they have a spot that they release the ball. They go through a movement and the way it gets released. And you see the end of that on the bounce there, but specifically on the release of the punt. As the Brazilian football program evolves, you'll watch, I can almost guarantee this, that you will see incredible punters start to evolve in the country of Brazil when they learn the strategy and how to let a good punt go. And good positive game there to get you out of the shadow of your goalpost. First down yardage for Team Canada. And 33 on the carry, I believe that one was 23, excuse me. That's Charles Fortin.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on your secondary. Not only do they have to cover when they're in the air, but they're making a lot of these tackles here, chasing down the backs as they get to the second and third level of the defense. So asking lots of the Brazilian defenders to make tackles on these backs who seem to always have fresh legs and a lot of burst in their game right now.
And a Brazilian wall there, a gain of maybe a couple inches.
Well,
so you and I wondered, obviously, coming into the second half, what are we going to see? What are we going to expect, right? And I don't know if any of the viewers who are watching this caught the first game. You mentioned at halftime. Halftime adjustments are the measure of a coach. Yeah. How about Austrian adjustments in the last game? Came out, outscored Canada 23-6 in the second half. Just phenomenal adjustments. I wonder what the adjustments here are for Aden Rodriguez. As ball into the hands of Colton Michael. One of those players that coaching staff earmarked as a guy to keep an eye on. Part of the Kamloops Broncos in the CJFL BC Conference.
Yeah, and again, you talk about the halftime message to your players, and they understand the situation they're in, but they're not backing down. They're not, they've made some plays in the box. We had a defensive lineman make a play on a running back. They're actually in a 3rd and 5 here. Which in some sense is a win for Brazil right now. Obviously, execution in a situation like this is going to be important, but they're coming out. They're still playing hard, and that's what you want to see from your team.
I don't know if Canada has failed to gain a first down, and as I say that, they don't. they gain first down yardage. That's certainly the most difficult first down that they've had to gain in this game before. Have they reached third down at all? I don't recall Canada getting to a third down. So, I don't know. Nathan Karinian on the catch there. 20.5 yards per catch average in CEGEP Division I this year. 14 touchdowns he's hauled in. Gets first down there. Can you remember Canada getting to third down in this game at all?
No, just checking the stat sheet. So team losses was 4 yards for Canada. So, again, only 4 yards, not a lot in team losses, whereas 20 for Brazil. So they were going backwards on a few of those plays with the aggression of the defense. You can see here what Brazil's done is they're dropping into different types of zones to keep things underneath, which Canada is happy to take those again. You know, you throw it underneath, you make a guy miss, and you get another first down like we saw right there. So, you know, Brazil is going to be playing this strategic game. They're going to be learning and trying to execute. And, you know, again, we talk about that. The halftime message to Brazil is, hey, learn against the best of the best. When we go into some of these other games later in this tournament, you know, we'll have another opportunity to show that we're growing, we're learning as an organization, as a country in the game of American football. So Canada on the move.
And Pepe Gonzalez at the controls from Andre Grassett High School, CEGEP Division I. Made the catch there to the St. John Richelieu product as Karinian, and airs one out, gets some distance on it, all the way down to the 15-yard line of Brazil. The comment I was going to make was Canada not necessarily is going to push the ball down the field because there really isn't a need to pad up any stats, but on the other side, they want to run their offense. So pushing the ball down the field with his legs was Charles Fortin.
Well, again, you run a run play and you do the best you can. And when the offensive linemen and the receivers are doing their job, contact's happening later. And you can see right there, great job coaching him up on the sideline. Again, good run, good vision to pick his way through the defense with the help, obviously, of the line that keeps moving that front seven. So we got a tight box here. Brazil's coming down.
And into red zone territory near first down yardage. The running back coach is Alex Vertillo out of College of Huntsic for Team Canada, who the head coach of Team Canada 2 is a part of for the time being. While Team Canada won in the driver's seat here, three-time defending champions of this World Junior Football Championship, the 6th edition of this, now every 4 years. As we have a look at number 24, Zion Dogbe Brown. So 4 touchdowns through along the ground, 3 through the air, and 1 through defense. As Canada looking to go 5 along the ground into red zone territory, second and short. And a connection, and they'll put it in. So 4 through the air, 4 along the ground. Coat Michael getting involved in it. And Michael's stats this year, he had 198 yards. Well, he did in 2022 with the Kamloops Broncos. Nothing last year, but he had a touchdown there as well, and he finds the end zone here.
Well, and great execution on coming underneath the coverage, find himself open on the flat, really putting the defender in a bind to jump to the quarterback, or you stay with the tight end, who, again, we've heard lots about them and their abilities. You can see here, coming in behind the protection, he just gets lost, and there's nobody to pick him up. So, again, easy pitch and catch. Good catch with 2 hands. Might I add, secure that, get himself in the end zone. So when you can catch it with 2, just catch it with 2.
Always love that conversation. You catch the ball with what?
2 hands.
Your eyes.
And your eyes, yeah, that's right. Looking it in. You know, we've seen a couple hit the ground today, not many. You know, pretty efficient through the air. Both Canada and actually Brazil when they are on target. Again, still working on that. But, you know, that's where you start to see the fundamental difference between the receivers on Team Canada and even the backs in some stands where they understand the fundamentals of catching the ball. They've caught hundreds and hundreds of balls in the game where a few have gone off the hands of some of the Brazilian receivers, where it's just like, okay, that's that skill that you need to master so you don't have to think about it when you're on the field in a game like this. You're just executing. You've done that so many times. And that's like any skill, really, in any sport. You want to get to the point where you've done that. The fundamentals are done so many times. You are not thinking about it when you're in the high level of competition like a game like today. So that's where Brazil continues to work, continues to get repetitions. And really, that's why they need to be here for this tournament, to see the growth in their organization, the players, and everybody involved in putting a team like this together.
The high level of competition. Canada now, this the second highest scoring game all time in Team Canada history. 2000 is when the Global Junior Championship started, at the U19 level, and the Under-20 World Championships now. This is the 6th edition, as I spoke about a few different times there. Canada, Rob Harrod, 12 previous times has shut out their opponents, and potentially they would hope for that today. While Team Brazil would love to build some positive momentum, and they knew. We even asked Adam Rodriguez before the game. He said, if this game gets out of hand, he goes, guys, I'm well aware of what's going to happen. This is likely going to get out of hand at some point in time. And again, the message on the sideline, don't worry about the score. We're building our country's program.
That's right, and that's the message they're going to hear throughout the course of this week as they experience this tournament.
Felipe Cota on the handoff, experiencing some relationship with the running back here. We've seen a decent workload bursting out of the gates from Luis Miguel Nunez out of the, Curitiba Crocodiles program. There's a shock. That championship program in Brazil.
A little bounce to the outside as he gets there. Not a lot of space as this swarming defense flies around. But one of the things that I do like from the Brazil offense is the exchanges in the backfield. They haven't, there hasn't been many bad snaps. Maybe a little bit off target, but for the most part, the exchanges have been clean. And that's what, we talked about the one fumble that Canada is losing in the stat category right now. They've played pretty clean on the Brazil side. Those exchanges have been good. And that's something you will see in young teams as they develop that in these types of games and these types of teams, is that chemistry in the backfield. But they've done a really good job of that now. Conquering the rest of the defense is still a challenge for them as they work through this one.
And oh boy, that's a challenge. Free ball bouncing around and pops out of the hands of Rafael Obes. Can we see that in his sleep? In a meaningless game? No. But again, athletes hold themselves to a high level of execution. And for number 3, Obey, in a meaningful game, that's something he's going to want to have in his hands. Okay, a strip there and the free ball. So Obey was frustrated with himself after the whistle.
Well, and the receiver knew what was coming. He had 48 coming from the middle of Team Canada's defense. They got the DB on the outside. If he would have laid out for that one, it could have been a very dangerous play for him. He needs to get that ball down in a way so he can kind of curdle and go down and snag that when coverage is that tight.
So again, the boot, a better boot there off the end of his foot. And I'm dropping the ball in the spot that I think he wanted it to, where before the release was going straight up. So, by the way, we talked about Brazil only getting here 2 days ago. 2 of their coaches, it was their birthday 3 days ago. How about imagine going through all that stuff on your birthday? The auxiliary coach, Silvio Sousa, as well as the head of the delegation, Ana Carolina Oliveira. It was their birthday on June 19th. So happy belated birthday to you through all of the travel difficulties. I hope, we know you got here all right, but certainly not the way you want to spend the birthday. And for Brazil, it's been a pretty decent showing, I think, here in the second half compared to the opening half in their first U20 experience. And a missed tackle will allow Canada to push the ball up the field. And Jason Bile on the reception off the hands of Olivier Theroux.
Well, against you execution, you can see as they line up, Canada had 3 receivers to the wide side of the field, and you had 2 Brazil defenders with the safety over the top. So that's telling you as an offense, you're probably going to a zone. You already outman them on the field side, which has the most space. And, of course, easy read for the quarterback. Find the open guy, get it to him in open space, let him make a play, which he was able to do. You can see here in the bounce.
The good look at the field there, and you see the adjustments as the handoff. And Canada looking to add to their total, and they will here. Into the end zone comes Leonard Lemay, and it puts one in the house. So now 5 along the ground, 4 through the air, and 1 defensively. But Rob Harrod, when you look at the team that occupies them right now, so if you're watching from Brazil, the professional Canadian football team, the Edmonton Elks, and the entire size of the field, you have the 20-yard end zones. And then in Canada, we identify the short and the far side of the field as the field and the boundary. Not as much in American football. There isn't as much as the wide side, not a traditional term. But that wide side of the field, you need an arm to deliver that onto the far side. So there's a lot of extra room, not as much here in 11-man football.
Well, we actually talked about the development of young athletes playing the game of football. You talk about the CFL or the Canadian field, even used in high school. it is a very, very wide field, and most quarterbacks can't even get it to that part of the field in a timely fashion. And so we talked about, is an American-style game better for the development of athletes when it comes to football? And it's an interesting debate that you can talk about in the football world and find out, like, is it better to give them those opportunities? I mean, we've seen different types of leagues. I mean, I coach my high school team in the 6-a-side. There's 9-a-side, both here, Saskatchewan, down in Texas, and across the U.S. They play different styles of football. And it would be interesting to watch some studies on the development of the athlete, allow the quarterback to make a few more plays on the field. And that narrow field allows for that little better route running because you've got less space. And so different things can be developed on different types of fields. And in the game of football here, we're seeing it on display well by Team Canada.
Your boy's sure developing. He's got to be pretty big. Hit the gym a lot as well.
He's coming, yeah. He's coming along, and it takes a lot of work. And, that's a lot of times when you get to this stage for these athletes, you didn't see the hours and hours and evenings, early mornings where they're putting time in the gym, in the development of their craft, whatever position that is, whatever skill set that is. And there's so much goes into the development of an athlete over the course of many years as they're growing up, and so many coaches and parents pouring into their lives. It's good to see that continue, and that's what the culture in some of these other countries, Brazil, we saw Panama go down to the U.S. earlier. Those organizations in those countries are really working to develop and establish that level that we're seeing on display here by Canada, the U.S., and some of the other dominant teams. Japan took care of business in the first round of theirs, so it's going to be some great matchups in the next round as Austria will face Canada 1 and Japan and the U.S. in a tight match. It'll be really good to see and interesting to see who comes out of those games to play for the championship next week on Sunday. But we've got lots of football left here.
We certainly do.
3:30 left in the third, and lots of points on the board for Canada. And Panama, another opportunity here for their offense. We got a kind of a squib short kick, not too deep, but
just going to go straight down with it. Is it the deck?
I got some good field position.
And the special teams for Team Canada. Coming down the hill and licking his lips. That was Christophe Martin.
Well, not a returner by natural position. So he's like, hey, I secured this. Let's get down. Let's get our offense an opportunity to move the ball a little bit here. Maybe they can get something going.
As we have a look at Jabari Arthur on the sideline, a great career at the Calgary Stampeders, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a little bit of time in the Kansas City Chiefs, in the NFL as well. Been coaching with the Calgary Dinos, the receivers coach there for a number of years. An offensive coordinator now since 2022. Had a good chat with Jabari, brief albeit, but I'd always love to get a chance to chat with some of those coaches. And he's not too far from here down the highway, and been really helping as a great bunch of athletes on the receiver side, and they got athletes on the defensive side. Missed tackle, though, by Benjamin Blaze on initial contact.
Well, we talked about with him a little bit about the talent in the receiving corps. Obviously, we heard of that. They kept maybe one less than traditionally they would keep because of the strengths of the backs. Doesn't mean you're not going to throw the ball. You got enough to fill your field. And again, in the U.S. game, you typically don't need as many receivers. That's why they've got 2 tight ends on their roster and maybe 1 less receiver, because most often we're seeing here, because of the talent of their tight ends, 3 receivers is the most they need on the field. So they don't need quite as many as they typically do in the Canadian game when you often are using 5.
Well, Felipe Cota and Brazil needing many here when it comes to points, but I don't think, as we've talked about at length a number of times in this broadcast today, in a game that's 69-0. Picking up topics to talk about it are certainly at a premium, but I think just overall, when you think of growing the game, growing the product, 7 countries represented here. It was 6 in 2018, 7 countries back in 2016. Obviously 7 here because 2 Canada programs. It only gets better and better over the years.
Yeah, and it takes time and it takes a commitment. So we were Canada coming with a 4-man front and a line of secondary players and linebackers there, again, shutting down that running game and going back to it again. They run the ball, and they're consistent, and I actually appreciate that from a coaching perspective, to not abandon a balanced approach to the game. Again, doesn't typically go well for you through the course of a game if it's out of hand in one like this. But again, they're staying balanced, they're staying committed to running the ball, passing the ball, really trying to establish some rhythm to take and some momentum and some positives to take into the next round of this tournament. As we see Canada guys running on and off the field, trying to sort things out. Not sure if we got too many. Got 12 on there, 11 on there.
Yeah, 12 is generally okay, normally. However, not in this tournament.
Well, and that's the other thing for these kids that are typically playing Canadian football. They're like, okay, we got to make sure our positions are right. We got the right guys on. If someone's going out with an injury, you got to make sure you got the right guy coming in, both on special teams and offense. But they end up not being comfortable with the late exchange, so they called the timeout to save them that and get the guys in the right position here on fourth down for Brazil.
And the conversation you and I had about Warren Craney, with Warren Craney before the game, I said, Warren, obviously you've been in this international situation for a long time, coaching for 11-man to 12-man. What's the difference? And he said, well, Dave, one of the biggest adjustments is the clock. Learning to deal with the clock and how to navigate the clock and negotiate it, where over the years, the coaching staff obviously still learning themselves and trying to coach that through the players too.
Well, navigating the clock becomes, you become very aware of it when you're in a situation where you need to use the clock. You need to either use it up or you need to save the time. And again, he said he didn't anticipate it being a clock management issue in this game, which he's proven right. Obviously, that's not the issue. But again, understanding that, you got a close game. How do you run the clock out? How do you use the clock properly? And that is going to be an adjustment, not only for the coaching staff, but for the players. But the coaches need to be on top of that. It's their responsibility to make sure players know what they need to do in certain situations.
And they're going to keep it on fourth down, but they're not going to gain the first down yardage. So it'll be a turnover on downs as Canada will take over in great field position just outside Brazil's 30-yard line.
Yeah, because here, once again, the exchange is good, but like in the backfield, you've got 2-3 linemen into the backfield. That's a dominant defensive line by numerous players. I mean, right across the board, they're all getting reps today in this game to kick off Canada's tournament here in defense of their championship that they've won in the previous tournament. So
Gabriel Lopez on the handoff there, Rob, and I think aside from coaching, just athletes that know bull rush, you're not going to be able to handle. We bring numbers. It's a lot of these players new to the offensive line, new to football. Who do I take? If I got two guys, okay, I'll take this guy, take that guy. And right now, Canada continuing to take the ball and march it, and that's Charles Williams. Williams, a Cégep Andre Grasset High School, 35 catches, 456 yards, and 7 touchdowns this year, an average of 13 yards per carry. And sticking with his average there, he'll move the chains.
Canada just keeping it simple, letting guys make plays, getting the ball out. And, important for Canada is to get out of this game without injuries. They got a lot of football left this week to play. And Brazil looking the same way. They want to stay healthy. They want to execute. And so they're going to compete. And they're going to compete to the very end. And go back to the run game here.
We certainly do. Mika Lepostel, the ball carrier. 5'10", $195. And of via Montreal, Cégep Division 1. So much of that junior college program on this Team Canada #1 roster. In fact, very, very few Western Canadian. Most of the Western Canadian players are in Canada, too. There's a smattering of them here and there. We saw the Calgary Colts players. Jordan Falconer had a great opening half, as well as Ian Dog Bay Brown. But just dominant out east in football. That's how the country has gone for a long time, and is dominant into the end zone again. Mikola Postel will add to it. Canada's into the 70s with the late stages of quarter number 3.
Yeah, you talk about the development of young athletes, and in Quebec they have the early high school program that they finished, and they have to go to Cégep. And I think in talking with some of the coaches at Ottawa U on my recent trip out there, they talked about the Cégep players. You have to play a minimum of, or go to school for a minimum of 2 years before you go to youth sports. And the level of coaching is just phenomenal in Quebec. So many of the athletes that I played with in my college days and in the pros, they return to home in Quebec, whether that's Montreal, Quebec City, or the surrounding areas, and they pour back into those programs. And that's where, we talked earlier about the Brazil team. Although they're going to be here for the experience, they're going to age out, but they can come back and they can help build football. And that's what you see happening, and it's been happening for years and years in the Cégep. So it gives them that, I would say, higher level of coaching than the average high school program across the country. They get a little bit more. They get a little bit more experience, a little bit of age on their side, so they're coming into those university ranks with a little bit more experience than a typical high school kid from across the country. You know, junior used to play that role a fair bit in Western Canada. Yeah, I see them celebrating.
Canada's having a good time.
Yeah, they're in celebration mode. Again, you're going to want to keep them dialed in. That's part of the mental game here. But, you know, the development of young athletes playing junior, and we see a lot of junior guys on this roster because they have the opportunity to develop through that program. And, of course, the youth sports, bringing them in sometimes straight out of high school to develop in as well. But it's really about that ongoing development year after year. And that's, again, what we talked about with the Brazilian coaching staff really working to develop that in Brazil to continue to compete at this stage.
By the way, I want to make a plug for the province of Quebec. I've never been to Brazil. I have friends that have lived there, traveled there. Beautiful part of the world. Culture just phenomenal. Very similar to the province of Quebec, which I've spent a lot of time there in my broadcast career over the last couple of years. Just so gorgeous. And there's some nice rustic, cultural places that you can visit. So if anybody from Brazil watching, you want to come experience culture and football together, Quebec is a great province to do that for sure.
It is, and you know, a unique thing about our country here is, you know, you go to different parts of the country, you get very different experiences from a landscape standpoint. We got the Rocky Mountains, and we got the mountains through Quebec and Ontario, and just again a beautiful country and something that you often take for granted when you live here until you travel the world and just see the beauty and the nature in different parts of the world. And again, a place I have not been is as far as Brazil. Would love to get down to South America and Brazil and spend some time doing some hiking and getting through the forest and the mountains down there. Just absolutely gorgeous. You
have a pretty good friend down there, you and I, a mutual friend that has been living there for a few years, and he is certainly enjoying it. Culture is what it's all about, and learning each other's cultures. And part of the conversation that we did have with Warren Craney before the game said, building relationships, learning about other cultures, meeting some people, gleaning from them. And Adam Rodriguez shared the same thing as well, coming in. Hey, if you're watching from Brazil, Canada's familiar with it for sure. This is the peak time to be involved in Edmonton and Canadiana, the professional hockey team in the championship, which doesn't happen very often. So Brazil's certainly getting all the countries here getting right involved in Canadiana, and that experience was tremendous, as I'm sure everybody was involved in yesterday. As the Oilers now off to a Game 7 on Monday. Penalty coming here, I believe. Missed the announcement. You and I haven't caught most of those.
Switching the half.
It's the end of the quarter.
End of the quarter, switching end of the field. They're going to make that swap before the next play gets off. We got the quarter left in this game. Canada in full control and getting reps and getting their
working
their
on the dance moves.
We got lots going on the sideline. Again, smiles all around. You can be able to finish this game out and enjoy the win. But of course, back to work. They're going to need to go and get some work in this week. They're going to be busy watching film and preparing themselves, resting their bodies, but getting prepared for the next level. And again, the advantage Austria has is they're in the stands here, keeping an eye on what Canada is doing, what they're doing well, and how can they prepare for that. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup for this Canada team number 1 against Austria that handled things fairly well this morning. And you think, with the pushback Canada 2 gave them, does that help them prepare for Canada team number 1, right?
Yeah,
with some resistance, some obstacles to overcome in the game, and they did a great job doing that.
It was a nice athletic catch. A lot of words spoken so far in day 1 for you and I today, and we will have both of the winning games right here at Commonwealth Stadium on Wednesday. We'll have Canada, as we will imagine, Rob, decision desk saying this is probably going to be a Canada victory. So they will take on Austria, and then USA will play Japan. You and I have both of those games on Wednesday.
Gabriel Lopez continues to catch balls out of the backfield. Dave, I don't know if we can pull up the stats of receptions in a game in this tournament, because I think he's going to be closing in on that. I think his number in the first half, if I remember, was 9 receptions. Maybe I'll double check that.
Don't know if I have the records for the tournament. I know I have the Canadian ones. So Let's have a quick peek here. Maybe we do. Single game yards, receptions, single game receptions is 8 in one game. And yeah, that is a tournament. No, those are just Canadian
The
stats.
Canadian records in the tournament in the game, so 8. But hey, you want to talk about the positives, something to build on. You got a Brazilian back who's broken. He's caught more receptions than anybody on the Canadian team again.
Catching out of the backfield, Rob, is an important stat for a running back, right? Like, he's so versatile now when you look at some of those athletes.
Yeah, and that's what you want out of your backs is the more versatility, the more ways you can use them. So we got a timeout call. Something's not looking right for Canada. Burn the timeout here and get things straight.
And we talked obviously so much about Brazil. Let's obviously talk about the defensive dominance for Team Canada today. 3-time defending champions, not allowing a score at all on the scoreboard. And I think for them, if there's one thing to accomplish right now, the score total for them doesn't matter. It's keeping it at 0. That's probably what they want to do to make sure the crowd on hand here hasn't seen a score like this in Commonwealth Stadium probably ever when it comes to football. But
and it's about execution. It's about playing and play out execution. Are you doing your job? Are you supporting the guys around you doing their jobs? And that's it. And if you can do that and focus on that, and the result is posting a shutout for a defense, yes, that's good. But, they're going to have to understand they're posting a shutout against the number 8 ranked team coming in with less experience. And so it's definitely more about the execution and the perfection they want out of their athletes in that regard rather than a 0. If a 0 results, just like in hockey, you get a shutout in hockey. They're excited about that. That's something to celebrate, not the goal. The goal is the team win. And that's what they're going to be focused on. And
that's a great boot. All the way back to the 42-yard line. And there's the progression of punting that throughout the process of the game, again, they've evolved. The first couple punts, straight up in the air, 20 yards out. That was a big-time delivery. I don't know the numbers on that, but that's north of 50 in my opinion, I think.
Yeah, I think it was pretty close, if not that. Yeah, for sure, Dave. And a good job of hang time. And if coverage could have got there just a brief second early, he didn't call a fair catch on that one. And he ended up bobbling it. Very fortunate for him because he bobbles that and guys are coming down on him. He's trying to track the ball. He takes a shot on that. So, again, securing that on the first attempt is going to be important if the cover team gets down there and you don't call for a fair catch.
1st and 10 for the 47 for Team Canada. It's Olivier Theroux at the controls again. He hands it off. Another one of their 4 running backs. Gains first down yardage and more. Charles Fortin, a 4.6 40, and the Maryland product at a Bishop McNamara High School, 6'1", 205 for running back.
Those backs need to continue to develop, continue to learn, and they're going to spend lots of time in the film room, as we've talked about, understanding the game. So you're playing a team that you've outmatched them, but making the good decisions as a back. They're hitting the hole hard, which I love to see, and they're making a one cut. But as you get into the second and third cut, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position for the pursuing defense. And so they're going to have to be disciplined because in this case, it may not catch up with them, but sometimes against the better teams, it will. And then the quick strike there.
And Theroux makes the completion, and Canada's marching one more time down to the 15. Charles Olivier Cyr, one of the tight ends that the head coach, Warren Craney, talked to us about before the game. I think he mentioned 3 or 4 names, and his 2 tight ends were 2 of them.
Yeah, and again, they talked about them being really have the ability to play receiver, and you can see there, not the speedy jet guy, but strong and powerful, and again, continue to get yards after the catch, make one move and get upfield. That's what I like to see from those tall guys. Again, those are the guys you tend in about 4 years to see coming into the CFL as those traditional Canadian slot back, big bodies, understanding getting first downs, that type of thing. So that's the kind of body maybe he's going to have the opportunity, elsewhere to play a little bit of tight end. The tight end is not used nearly as much in Canadian football. They tend to lean on a tweener, a fullback type of guy. They don't use them like the tight end in most Canadian games. So American football, definitely a style that uses the tight end more. And a lot of these big-bodied guys who do go to the States and play in the NCAA, if they're that big, they're often moving over to tight end, getting up to 225 to 245, 6'4", 6'5", and being used both in the passing game and the run game. So, again, great use of them here in this game. Again, big-bodied receivers, tight ends able to make plays downfield.
Otavio Lopez, the injured player, defensive back, for Brazil, probably more than anything, just a reps exhaustion. As you see the Brazil team, you saw them taking a knee, hands on the hips, a sign of absolute fatigue as well. Taru, hands off, no touch at all, maybe a little tap on the leg as they put in the end zone. Charles Fortin, and Canada now into the 80s.
Yeah, they keep moving, they keep staying balanced, using the pass, using the run. Again, respectful play calling. As we talked about in this game, it's tough. You can't tell your guys not to play hard. You want them to play hard. They're here to showcase their ability, but we're doing it very respectfully as they roll over Brazil. And Brazil continue not backing down.
Not at all, no.
So I love to see from the Brazilian players. And it's hard. It is hard. It's out of hand. It's done. You want to kind of like save yourself, but these guys are working hard, playing hard, and that's what their head coach said. You can expect them to play and bring their absolutely best here against the best in the world.
I have a rhetorical question for you, Rob Herod, former alumni of the CFL, professional football player. Do you remember your worst defeat as an athlete, your most lopsided score, either you as a player or a coach that you were exposed to?
Well, my worst defeat, numbers-wise, like on the scoreboard, I do remember, and it was as a coach. We had some tough games, and going into COVID, the year prior to COVID, we traveled with our six-a-side team, traveled down to Hannah, who was, I think, 1 or 2 times
just in southern Alberta for those watching.
Right. Southern Alberta, close to the border. They play some games against some U.S. schools.
Yep.
And so we went down there. We knew we were outmatched. They were the best in the Div 1 league. We were, at that point, the worst team in the league. We came, had a tough year that year, but we got absolutely whooped. And I think it was probably 76-6. We managed to score once, didn't get the convert, but we played hard. But the learning opportunity for those guys, young guys on that team who were playing in that game because guys were getting hurt. It was a physical game. We came back. We missed a year because of COVID, and then we came back, and those guys were part of our 2-time championship provincial run. So coming off one of the worst defeats in my personal football experience, but program history, responded with a strong effort the following 2 years. And so, Brazil, not Panama, Brazil is going to have to learn from this, and you can learn. And I truly believe it. You never want to be on the losing end of a game like this, but you can learn from these games. You can see the expectation. I think Canada, both out of class and out of football play right now, is showing Brazil how it's done. And they can learn from that, and they can glean things from that with their interaction, because you are in the trenches from start to finish here, and they're learning from a very, very good team, very well-coached team in Canada, and they can up their game and make their game better because of that.
I want to pull on a clip out of my brain from a recent broadcast that I was a part of and doing the World Para Hockey Championships a couple months back. Hearing a clip within the last year from Declan Farmer, one of the greatest para-hockey players to ever live, a member of Team USA, has done nothing but win Olympic gold medals. And the players that play against him from other countries, from Italy and from the different countries that I've had the privilege of interacting with, it's all one message. We want to learn what it's like to win, and if you let up against us, we're not going to know what it takes to win. And Declan said, and the Team USA group said in that, as a group, we want to show other groups what it's like to win and win respectfully. So we're not going to stop doing what we do, but we're also not going to rub it in your face when we do it. And that, Rob, I want to bring that to you, because that's kind of what I caught a lot of from Warren Craney, the head coach of Team Canada, when he spoke about Brazil. And I hear a lot about that, and you and I are friends. I've known you for a long time, and I know that's probably part of the lesson, not only you coach, but you believe in as a person as well.
Well, and it lends itself to the character that you're trying to establish. Again, we got a mis-exchange in the backfield, a high snap, but culture. And the advantage of having a coach like Craney back with this team is he knows the culture. He knows the coaches he wants to bring with him to set that culture. And he even talked about like the type of player you want. And this is, I've been learning this more and more and talking about different coaches at different levels, and say it's about the culture of the team, because when you start to play at an elite level, everyone's an elite athlete. but how you bring them together, the chemistry they have, the relationships they build on and off the field make the difference in winning championships at the highest level. And so, that's what he's done in the past, and it's shown in the results in this tournament. But again, he carries that over to this team in this tournament, and you want to establish that. And it starts with the players you take. You don't want to just always take the best athletes. You want to take the best players that contribute to the team and what the team is going to try to accomplish. And so that it starts right from the beginning before any players are picked. What are you going to do? What culture are you going to set for this team? And it's not easy to do because you don't have 3-4 months or years after year to do that. Every 4 years, you're going to bring a group together and say, this is the culture.
Yeah.
This is who we want on this team. So very important. And it shows if you have the right culture and you set the right culture, you get the results that you've seen on this Team Canada for a number of years now.
It's such an interesting point. I want to expand on that because going onto these rosters, and I've told you about a bunch of the stats here so far, a lot of these guys lead their team in a number of statistical categories, as this guy does. And he's going to march into the end zone. And that's going to be a long run, and it's a house call for Zion Dogbe-Brown, and that won't be his last in his career. I'll hold that thought because I want to see if that might be a record for a play from scrimmage along the ground.
I got it 49 yards is the scamper he goes to the end zone. You keep looking for those stats as we convert team comes out to execute. But yeah, great run, great execution, and just the speed. We talked earlier about the 4 backs.
Yeah, nowhere near.
Continue. Canada kept it on the roster, the 4 backs, but the reality is if they had a longer field, that would have gone the distance for a longer number of yards. So outstanding play, outstanding run and execution here late in the game.
So Felix Lucier-Roy is the record holder from 2016. He had an 80-yard run from scrimmage and put it into the end zone. He actually has 2 records out of the 7 that we do have, and Jim Mullen at Football Canada and all the guys at Football Alberta, Tim Enger and company, have done a phenomenal job with the IFAF and hosting us here. Rob, again, I want to get back to that point that we're talking about. A lot of these players, Zion Dogbe-Brown included in that, are used to being the guy on their program, right? When you talk about building the culture, coming in, you're not going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 7, 8, 9 targets in a game that you might think 15, 20, 25 carries as a running back. So building the right guys that know, or you might only get 4 carries this game, but you're part of the end goal, which is a championship.
Yeah, and you can tell by their execution and what they've offered here today. They've bought into that idea of, yeah, it is essentially an all-star team, a national team where they're picking from across the country. Everybody's good coming into this game. You're exactly right, Dave. And again, there's a lot of athletes showing why they've been recruited and scouted and pulled in by different junior and university teams.
1 point shy of the all-time Canadian scoring record. 90 on the board, 91 is the number, and boom. There's heavy contact.
Some fired up special teams guys. Love to see that. Fired up and excited to go. Return just outside the 20 for Brazil as their offense gets back onto the field here.
Gabriel Gomez. And nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, you just got a layer of special teams guys, and you go, like, how do you tackle light in football, right?
You don't. That's the thing about it. That's what we talked about. You can't just kind of let up. I'm going to tackle softly. You got to come in.
I'm going to two-hand touch. And do you mind, sir, just laying down for me if you don't mind? Like, no, you hat on hat. That's just part of the game, regardless of the score. And the ball's going to pop loose, and it's going to go into the end zone. And the most awkward way to set a record. It's going to be a touchdown for Canada, and it's the all-time record. 96 on the board with one more. Well, we knew 97 has been a popular number here in the Edmonton area for a long time, and 97 right now will be the record holder for the Canadians.
Well, and again, we've looked at, I do wonder if we had a little bit of an exchange, a change maybe at center, because we've noticed in the last couple series, I mean, really in the first half, the snaps were pretty good, exchanges were good in the backfield, but even that one he had to jump for. By the time he gets it down, he has no chance to get his eyes downfield and do anything with that. So, again, kind of scrambling with a lot of guys in his face. Ball comes out, ends up in the end zone for Canada.
Colby delves the forced fumble. Colby's actually a lifelong wide receiver. That was the guy I was looking at, just converted over to defensive end.
Well, you
Part of that Cornwall Wildcats OSFL U18 AAA program. Also has a 485-40. Guy can scamper pretty good for a big boy.
Yeah, that is good. And again, you talked about number 97 being a special number here in Edmonton right around now, and they missed the Converse.
Boy!
Not at number 7.
Not at that. One shy. There is only one 97 in Edmonton, maybe poetic that it stays at 96. Obviously, those watching maybe who aren't hockey fans, Connor McDavid, the best hockey player on the planet currently, and his Edmonton Oilers going to a Game 7 on Monday night against the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup. There's your education for hockey. No, not the collectible that everybody's going crazy about, the Stanley Cup, the travel mug, the actual Lord Stanley. And there's Team Brazil, and I'm sure they got a good dose of that celebration last night, and they'll collect their chips and get ready for Wednesday when they'll be part of some of the consolation games. Where Brazil will take on Australia. The ball slip out there, up.
Yeah, interesting coaching decision. Not sure what they're going to rule here. I don't know if he was out of bounds when he recovered that, and who the last person to touch it was before he was. And we'll get a shot here. I don't know if this was intentional or if it was. I think he was trying to get it up, but not through the back of the end zone, and kind of missed it there. So you see a couple touches, and then is he out of bounds as his hip hits the ground? And I only watched that
play for an onside kick. Not a bad thing to practice that. This is now kind of a scrimmage for Canada, if anything, right?
Yeah, long discussion here on what's going on and what their decision is. It looks like the word is Brazil is going to have it. I don't know if Panama's in my mind after watching the rest of that U.S. game
I watched. I already called them Austria once, so
it's all right. We'll sort it out before the end of this tournament as they keep changing. But looks like the offense is going to be on the field, so decent field position on the 32 coming out.
Special teams coordinator, Rob Arid, for Canada's Zach Colangelo out of Mount Allison University.
Again, all the way from the coast, contributing to putting this team together, developing these young guys. So here comes the quarterback with the play. Get this in and get this rolling.
I wonder if Gustavo Cornelius, because it's been Felipe Cota literally since the end of the first quarter. Cornelius looked pretty good, in my opinion. He's definitely your better option is the way to describe it, but more of a seasoned athlete of the quarterback position. I don't know if he's maybe injured or whatnot, but just giving your guy the reps. I imagine Cornelius, my mindset, probably going to be your guy the rest of the tournament. So give Cota the reps in this one that is obviously well in the hands of Team Canada.
Yeah, and again, the reality is you've got to use your roster, and again, the rosters from the different countries traveling may not be able to travel as many, and the depth at the especially the quarterback position when you don't have a well-established system that's developing quarterbacks for a long period of time. You talk about the quarterbacks, in this game here, been developing as a quarterback for many years at every level. That just not in place yet in Brazil, and so it's a tough place. But at the same time, you want to get different guys reps. I mean, all those players have worked hard; they've earned the spot on this team, and they want to have an opportunity to play. And again, the highly competitive athletes want to play against the best. And it's not great as a quarterback when your line is on the back end of this defensive front here by Canada, but you still want to compete against the best. The most competitive athletes want that.
It's been a great opening day at the IFAF World Junior Football Championships. Bucket list item for me. Oh boy, fumble on the plate, and Canada will recover. So now they have some offensive or some great field position. Carson Hardman with the ball that just landed right in his lap, so he gets the fumble recovery. Cannot say I've ever broadcasted a 96-0 sporting event before, so certainly first in my history. However, my most memorable score throughout my sporting career, we beat a team my basketball team in high school, 96-11. So 96 just jogged that memory. I was like, what was my most lopsided loss? Well, I lost 11-0 in a ball hockey championship game, which was pretty embarrassing. But 96-0 was 96-11 was the most lopsided score. But of course, again, my ball hockey team came back, won the championship next year. So you learn the lessons, Rob.
You do. You learn from those things, and you grow from those, not only in the sporting world, but in life. And you bring that up, actually. Funny enough, I do remember a team I coached in basketball, actually, talking about 96 points being scored. It's often a basketball score. I did end up stepping in for a coach. It wasn't my team. We stepped into a tournament, coaching a junior high team when I was teaching in a junior high. We'll get this call from the ref.
10-yard penalty, you play first down.
And move that back for Canada. But yeah, lost. I think it was 109, 111 to 7 or 8 points. So it was a tough loss in a basketball now. I mean, I did my best as a fill-in coach for the one game against maybe one of the better junior high programs and a young girls team that I was coaching. But that was definitely lopsided as well. And I've been on both sides of those, and you want to be respectful, as we talked about lots today, when you're on the upside, and continue to respect the game and compete if you're on the downside of one of those.
Canada dominant. They have not lost a step. Obviously a far different program since 2018, and continue to wear that crown as defending champions until somebody takes it away. And game number 1 for them, a convincing score. They'll meet Japan in their next contest. No, that's a lie. They'll take on Austria. Japan will play USA.
So 3 teams so far, and Canada is going to be the 4th to punch their ticket to the medal semifinals. And so we're going to see Austria take on this Canada team, and of course U.S. and Japan going to go toe-to-toe in a few days here. Looking forward to seeing and seeing the results of those games, of course, leading up to the championship game on Sunday and a bronze game as well.
Taru hands it off, and more. A little shake and bake from Canadian running backs, and out of bounds is Zion Dogbe Brown.
Well, and just exposing the edge of this defense and just the speed, you can tell it's just next level athletes out there on Canada's side, but well executed, good blocking up front, but just you can see there, just speed just continues to work, and the physical nature of this game, you get worn down when you're constantly tackling, chasing these guys, and the talent. I mean, there's definitely talent on this Canada's offense here, and they've been chasing them all day.
Roster top to bottom. Warren Craney told us, don't really have any superstar athletes, air quotes. This might be the deepest team I've coached to this level, he said, and certainly putting it on display on day number 1. Likely a false start here, which will bring the chains back potentially in false start, a term in American football, as that would be a procedure in Canada.
Offense, number 16, 5-yard penalty, still first down.
So bring it back 5 yards. That official, Matthias Kaltenegger from Austria, giving us the commands there.
Well, it's great for these officials to be able to come in from around the world and really, it's wonderful to be part of these cultural experiences when different countries come together. And the Olympics coming up, it's such an experience for everybody to, as a fan.
I forgot about that completely, Rob Herron. It is coming up right away.
But this reminds me of that. You bring teams in from around the world to compete on this stage is wonderful. So, it's always a celebration, regardless of the score and the results of the tournament. It's a celebration for these athletes.
And Zion Dogbe Brown, not able to celebrate there as he takes it out of bounds. 5 and change to go, 12-minute quarters. 11 players on the field. Uprights at the end of the end zone, 4 downs. The NCAA rules. And this phenomenal tournament. Gathering of 7 countries in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Western Canada, northern part of Alberta. So glad you have joined us here. Commonwealth Stadium, the home of the Edmonton Elks of the Canadian Football League. Clark Stadium adjacent to it. The 2-stadium tournament. And over 3 days, Wednesday, we'll gather again. In the meantime, Dogbe Brown makes it a 3-digit experience. 103 Canada gets to. And continuing, well, this obviously is already a record, but I Scoreboard not even equipped for three-digit score in a football stadium.
Yeah, not sure you're often going to see that. And we got the digital scoreboard on one end showing 102, waiting for the extra point. And the the scoreboard on the south end, no 100 points.
Definitely, unless you do an outdoor
there,
basketball game. It's the only time you might get to 102.
Which maybe we should look at that.
And not even the webcast has the ability to get to three digits in the football as well. And I'm familiar with some of the scorebug software, and in football, there's different templates you use, hockey, basketball, football, that allow the operations of it. So, yeah, 3-0. I'm sure Brazil will be far more happy about that one than the other two digits in front of it.
If you're tuning in late from around the world,
this is
a soccer game.
It is unbelievable, and it's a blowout of a soccer game.
Yeah,
Canada taking it to Brazil 3-0. Certainly not. I'm sure smiles. And I wanted, Rob, maybe for viewers who didn't necessarily join in, and if you have watched every moment of this game, thank you very much for tuning in today. Certainly a process as well, whichever end you're watching from, whether it be Canada, Brazil, or beyond to that. But, yeah, there it is. Thanks, guys. Not equipped at all for the ability to put three digits up on the scoreboard. So, yeah. However, the point I wanted to make, Adam Rodriguez, the head coach of Brazil, told us before the game, I know this is going to be a blowout. The message I want to tell my team, score doesn't matter. I don't want you getting angry if we get scored on and we're down by 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. That's not the lesson I want you to learn today. The lesson I want you to learn is you're playing against the top country in the world.
Yeah, and they need to prepare for their next game. You mean there's going to be zeros on the clock here not too long, and Canada really needs to reset. You know what? They can score 150 points if they want today. None of that gets carried over to later in the tournament.
Yeah.
They're going to have to reset, just like Brazil will have to reset for their next match, and Canada will have to work on doing it again with a tougher component, more experienced component. We had the pleasure of calling that game earlier today over at Clark Stadium.
That Austria group was excellent. Great defensively. They got a great quarterback. And Szabo was able to move the ball well and active feet. They were excellent defensively. So a far different opponent Austria will be for Canada on Wednesday. Broadcast time for that one. I got to pull my schedule up here, Rob. 5 o'clock Mountain Time. USA-Japan will be at noon.
Well, and Canada's going to get some film on that game earlier and prepare for Austria. We know they've got a couple stellar backs and able to make some plays. And then, of course, the poised quarterback and some receivers that like to go downfield. So see what that looks like later in the week.
So Canada also set another record for points in a quarter. It was 51, I believe. 50, was it 51-0 and a half? What was the score at half? Do you remember?
I believe that was it.
So 36 points and a half, the previous record for Canada. In 2014, that 91-0 win over Kuwait. Or in a quarter, pardon me. 36 points in a quarter is the record. So Canada this quarter was at, I don't remember the start of the score. Score in the start of the quarter. You know what's not easy? When a game is out of hand and finding things to talk about in the fourth quarter. But you and I have enjoyed that as that goes over the head, out of the hands of Felipe Cota.
Well, I'm trying to get a quick hitter there on the quick slant, just a little bit high. We talked about the size and dominance of the defensive line. And again, you got a quarterback throwing over a number of guys. If you look at this defensive line for Team Canada.
Yeah, how about the numbers?
6'4", 295, 6'1", 265, 6'3", 280, 6'3", 215, 6'2", 300 pounds. I mean, 6'6", 310. That's Brad Roden. We talked about him earlier in the broadcast, but just 6'4", 250. I mean,
6'2", 300.
Got towers everywhere,
yeah, those are
across
big
the
boys.
defensive line, whether it's your first group, your second group, or anybody in between. It's hard to see over them if you're not creating space to throw the ball. And nice punt.
And the evolution of the punt in this game alone, I think Brazil's made tremendous strides in where they want to deliver the ball And we're going to get a great punt return. Will it go to the house? The guy who's got a pick six wants to add to his list on a punt return for a touchdown, but he's going to get hauled down out of bounds. That's Brian Million.
Yeah, and good return. And that's where, as experience needs to grow for this Brazilian team, it's another thing. The first couple punts, they weren't great. They didn't have to worry about their coverage. Now their coverage needs to be disciplined. They were at so many different levels because of the physical nature this Canadian team is playing, and especially on special teams, they're breaking up their levels, and there's just too many seams for the number of athletes that Canada can put back for the return game, whether it be punt or kickoff return. Canada here lining up just outside the 20, about the 23-yard line. Going to continue the offensive dominance they've showed. And good run for first down.
Text from Jim Mullen here, who told us about the record, which is official. I've been using Jim Mullen's stat database, the president of Football Canada, and he did send me a text to confirm it. So never want to make an absolute statement. I've learned those lessons in my 20-year broadcast career. Until something has been confirmed, it's unofficial until confirmed. So Jim did confirm that in fact is a Canada football record.
Well,
at
there
the
you
U20
go.
level, or World Junior level, rather.
I would love to know if it is a tournament record. Watching some of the scores, again, lots of points being scored in some cases, especially in this first round of 1 versus 8 or top versus bottom seeds in these tournaments. But 103 is a lot of points, a lot of execution, and I don't think they're done.
110 is just inches away, and that's where they are. 109, first of all. Charles Ford into the end zone, and the Canadian faithful waving the flags and showing their support. Where the Brazilian fans, I think, they knew coming in the task that was at hand. So, and again, on our scoreboard, it's 9-0.
That's right. It's got it tight here. They tightened it up here in the fourth. And, fans are staying to the end on both sides.
It's like playing 21 when you got 20 and you accidentally put in 2. You're like, oh, score reverts to 0.
Yeah, that's right. So, again, executing is what you expect to happen here. So you're going to ask your team to continue to do that. And Brazil's working, fighting, battling hard each and every play. We knew we were going to get their best, and we're seeing their best out here. No one's giving up. No one's taking plays off. And that's hard to do. Hard to do in a game like this, but they're doing it well. And so hats off to the Brazilian team who stepped off the plane just a few days ago. Some of them stepped into pads only a few months ago, and they're here facing a very, very strong Team Canada. And we'll see as this tournament goes on if they can remain the best team in the world for U20 championship.
Jordan Falconer with the convert as well get him a couple reps in there. Jaden Rice.
Look at all the stats. I think fumble-wise, I'm not sure what the total fumbles are going to be, but
only a couple of them today, I think.
Only a couple of them.
2 picks, I believe, and most of them are just offense dominating.
Yeah, I guess some turned over to Brazil, but silver lining for Brazil. They have missed less converts than Team Canada has today. Haven't missed any. They're 100% on attempts, so that's good. Canada's missing some converts, which. Again, a game like this, you don't think about the conference, but in a tight game, maybe against one of the top teams that they're going to face for the next couple of days, you don't want to be missing those converts.
Oh, boy. Might have a little bit of room here. If he had a little bit of blocking, when he got by that initial blocker, and another one of those components for Brazil football, when they start to get familiar with special teams, okay, one guy breaks wide, and a U seal here, another block here, and boom, right, to hit the hole. So, and based on the evolution we saw in punting from the initial snap to where Brazil went today, I cannot wait to watch them in 4 years from now, where they may be if they're back in this tournament.
Yeah, and on a return like that, the design was to go up the right side of the field from the return stance. So if you're going to make a decision because things collapse to bounce it, you can't necessarily expect blockers to be out there because no one's anticipating, as opposed to a called return to the wide side of the field. Can happen.
So Brazil calling timeout here with pretty much academic the rest of the way. Team Canada will take on Team Austria, and Team Japan will play Team USA. Dave Dawson and Rob Herod here for the IFAF 2024 World Junior Football Championships. Thanks so much for joining us and spending your Saturday afternoon with us, wherever you are tuning in from. Canada, Austria. Canada won. Austria. So I guess in the record books, theoretically, it's the third meeting in history between Canada and Austria because Canada 2 played Austria today. So Canada 1 plays Austria. So it's still a Canada-Austria game. So it's 1-1 so far. Canada 2 lost to Austria this afternoon. They're back in 2014, 36-7 in Kuwait. On July 13th, 2014, Canada beat Austria there. So,
yeah, and Austria is sitting in the stands watching this game, knowing they're going to be playing a Canada 1 team come later in the week, and so they're going to do everything they can to prepare for that. We know they're very systemic in their work they've done with their program. We talk about Brazil working towards that, a systemic system within the country to develop players. You know, Austria is ahead in that category as well, doing a great job. We'll see how that matchup goes.
We got another bad
snap, just a unfortunate situation. Again, going with 4 verticals. I like the call. I love you get them a shot, but the snapping has just been very troublesome for Brazil in the second half, kind of in this last quarter. Again, you know, in the first they were trying to execute and they're getting some positive plays every couple drives, but here the snaps are just negating any possibility. And you can see here as they line up 4 receivers in the backfield, they got 4 verticals going downfield, but no chance to get that out. And now they're backed up right to their goal line there. Quarterback standing inside the edge of his goal line.
40-second play clock here and backed up into the end zone, and Kota will get taken down. High in the line of scrimmage, I'm not sure. I think he might have fallen forward. So likely just be a tackle on the play instead of a sack.
Yeah, kind of went to slide down, very awkward because some guy was coming behind as he started to slide. Kind of bent him forward there a little bit awkward. Want to make sure he's okay and safe, ready to play the rest of this tournament. He's definitely not done today. He wants to continue his tournament experience in a few days here. We'll see as they line up here. 2 receivers, tight end on the right-hand side with a single receiver. Got a one-on-one matchup to that right side of the field. We'll see if they try to attack that.
Final minute of play in this one. And I'm sure for Brazil, could not wait for it to end as thrown back into the end zone. However, it'll be where his forward progress was stopped. Likely a loss of about 1 or 2. I believe the officials are signaling the 5-yard line. So 4th and an absolute mile to go. But, difference of 5 seconds between the play clock and the game clock. They'll likely just punt it here or toss it for the turnover on downs, and Canada will take a knee at the 40-yard line, which I'm pretty sure, based on the conversations that we had with the coaching staff, they're likely not going to punch it in for one last touchdown on the final play.
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, you want to
obviously they're not going to.
You need to punt the ball away here.
Yeah.
And not out of the end zone. It's only almost happened there, but going to have to finish this play. And on the ground it goes. A lot of space out there.
Or they're going to put it in the end zone anyway.
He's going to step out of bounds.
Stepping out of bounds, and that'll do it.
Again, talk about class. That's class, knowing you can cut back, try to make the extra play. Steps out of bounds, and that's going to bring zeros to the clock.
A record-setting day for Team Canada. The first ever appearance between Canada and Brazil in the World Junior Football Championship. The first ever time in this tournament, Canada has hit 3 digits in a score, 91 previously, 110-0. The 13th time in history they've shut out an opponent. So Canada will take on Austria, and Japan will play USA. Rob Herron, your final thoughts in this one when it comes to the overall concept of the dominance of Canada and where Brazil goes from here?
Well, knowing coming in that Canada was going to be dominant, they came out, they did what was expected of them. This really was expected of them. You know, can't predict the score, but it was expected that they would dominate, and they were able to do that. And on the Brazil side, they came out to compete, and they got a measuring stick with the best team in the world right now. And so hats off to the Brazilian team, working on the program, developing, moving forward. I'm very impressed. And again, I don't express the excitement around an event like this hosted in Edmonton from around the world, fans and players and coaches all converging on Edmonton, where there's lots of excitement, of course, and you can see, just the appreciation and the respect between the players as they shake hands. And, Brazil knows what they need to work towards as a country, and they're going to have a great experience here in Edmonton. Again, many of these players not getting out of Brazil for their lives. Is maybe the first time flying and getting to Canada.
Yeah.
So we got some great weather to start the tournament and a great experience for them. Lots going on here today, and you can just see the camaraderie, and we talked about relationships with the coaches. All those things are happening over the course of this week, and then, you see Brazil, they're not hanging their head.
No.
They're proud to
You would
be
think
here.
it's 10-0 by the handshakes, not 110-0.
Yeah, and you know what? They're excited, and you can see the respect in both directions. Canada understands the situation, respects the players who are battling hard, and Brazil understands, like, hey, this is a team we need to respect. They've earned that, they've established that, and it's something we can work towards. So lots of camaraderie, lots of handshakes, and lots of respect being seen between both of these teams. And same thing with the coaches. Very, very, as we experience in talking to both of these coaching staffs, very proud Brazilian fans. The opportunity for their nation to come to Canada and represent their country. So very exciting to celebrate along with them, just the experience, and they'll
Great
grow.
stuff.
They'll grow in the football world for it too.
Benjamin Blaze, cool moment with him there, number 7 with Team Canada, and you're going to get a lot of these different handshakes. Don't know if we're doing players of the game or not, but why don't we wrap this thing up? We got for that thumbs up from Mr. Producer Director. They're like, yep, let's get us out of here. Okay. For Rob Herod and all of our great production crew here at Commonwealth Stadium, Jim Mullen from Football Canada, and all the great people at Football Alberta and the IFAF. This is Dave Dawson saying thank you so much for joining us on day number 1 at the IFAF 2024 World Junior Football Championships in Edmonton, Alberta. We'll see you on Wednesday for the next round of this. Good night from Edmonton.